Welcome to the Omni Sports podcast, featuring your host, Bobby Labita and Zach Rome.
Hey, Zach.
Bobby Labita, what's going on?
What's up, Zach Rome? Ready here to talk about baseball, one of our favorite things. I'm all swagged out in Dodger gear. I'm reliving my frat days, turning my hat around. This hat is way too big on me, which is why I can fit headphones under it. But it's okay because I still look cool.
You found a view.
I did. This is the 50th anniversary of the Dodgers being in LA. So I love this hat. It's one of my favorites. Also has all my favorite colors in it. How are you, Zach?
I'm doing good. Is that a 2008 hat?
Yes, it is. Yes.
I know my Dodgers history.
Yes, you do. I got it when after we got Shohei. Shout out to the jersey I'm wearing, which my mom got the jersey at the stadium and refuses to tell me how much it costs, which is concerning because I don't think I will have any inheritance because of this jersey. So Shohei, I hope it was all worth it. But yeah. 2008, yeah, but I got this right after we signed Shohei. I think the next day I went to an apparel store. There's in the Northridge Mall a Dodgers specific apparel store, which I did not know, even though I've lived next to that mall since I was a child. Maybe new, I don't know.
Still, I'm rocking with it.
I'm rock and rolling, but we're back for another week of the Omni Sports podcast, featuring our second installment of the baseball podcast with me, who you all know and maybe love. Bobby Labita, and my wonderful co-host Zach Rome, who worked for the Diamondbacks, worked for the Suns, worked for the Chattanooga. What was the team name again?
The Lookouts.
The Lookouts.
So
worked. There's my kitten who thinks this podcast is about her. All right, so we got some baseball. You want to start off talking about the very thing we're talking about, the Dodgers?
Yeah, let's lead off with the boys in blue. They've won seven straight, 14 out of their last 16 games. They swept the Braves. People saying that's a potential NLDS NLCS matchup. So that was an important win. And they lost their closer, Evan Phillips, and starting pitcher Bobby Miller, and they're still dominating. But pitching wise, their batting average is crazy. I mean, Shohei Ohtani's been amazing. We'll get to him, but yeah, this Dodger team looks like to be firing on all cylinders.
It really is. And kind of shameless plug, I hinted out before, but I went with my now fiance and my mom and her friend to the Dodgers game this Saturday where Max Muncy had 3 home runs. And to quote me at the game right before he hit his 3rd home run, would it be really cool if we watched him hit 3 home runs today and then literally 10 seconds later he hit it? And everyone around me was like, "You did it." I was like, "Yeah." But it was so much fun to be there. It was electric in a way that this will sound bad, but Dodgers fans we weren't in the mid 2000s, but we're now used to a certain level of success. And sometimes I feel like that means a Saturday May game doesn't really matter that much, but it was popping. It was maybe the most electric I've ever seen Dodger Stadium minus an actual playoff game. So it was cool. We won 11-2, surprising against the Braves. But that sweep, it was a lot of fun being there, and it felt like the players were having a lot of fun, which makes it, I think the best thing as a fan. But it was just so impressive.
It's crazy. Max Muncy, who's the 6th best batter on this team, just has 3 home runs just in the game. Just that's our 6th best guy.
Yeah, I was trying to tell Jessie, my fiance, who she's newish to baseball, but she had so much fun. She's like, "I didn't expect to have so much fun." I'm like, "Baseball games are where it's at." But I was explaining to her "Oh, normally when you have a really good player, you might walk them occasionally because you don't want to face them, but you can't do that with the Dodgers because I'm gonna walk Mookie. Okay, it's Shohei. Okay, I'm gonna walk Shohei. Now we got Freddie. Okay, we're gonna walk Freddie, and now we're gonna walk Max Muncy, who has not swung at a pitch outside the batter's strike zone in 50 freaking years or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. I know the Dodgers have had a sustained success for I would say maybe 10, 11 years now. I'm not talking hyperbole when I think this might be the best team we've had. I know the Shohei signing kind of does that, but just besides Ohtani, we're stacked, in the batting order. We're stacked in the bullpen. Our starting pitchers, we have guys that are injured, like Kershaw, Buehler, that have been injured all year. Of course, Buehler's back now, but Bobby Miller is on the injured list, and we're still pumping out Tyler Glasnow, Yoshi Yamamoto. Even Gavin Stone has been a pleasant surprise. Like this Dodger team there's no weaknesses, and if they keep this momentum, like I don't see anybody stopping them.
No, it really felt like a freight train. It's like when your worst hitter is Gavin Lux, who really isn't that like that bad of a hitter, you're in a good position. And I think the thing that you're speaking to is like I feel like in the past we've always had good hitters. Like I don't think hitting is always our hitter our bats have gone cold at the worst time, October, but we haven't had bad hitters on paper. But I always feel like there's that inconsistency with pitching. The thing I think that's exciting is that we have those injuries and we're still like doing really like we have basically, I think I saw this video is like basically our starting rotation that's on the IL is like like better than most people like teams starting rotation in general. Yeah. So I think that's something to look forward to. And I think one of the highlights of the pitching staff is one of our newest pitchers, Yamamoto. One thing I wanted to briefly talk about with him that I thought was kind of funny, and then I know you wanted to talk about him a little bit, if I'm not getting too fast off the Dodger hype train. But did you see what ESPN did? Or what the broadcast did when Yamamoto started his last game?
Yeah, I think you sent that to me. I think it was MLB Network. I don't know what kind of was in their coffee that morning or what they were drinking, but they were saying no hitter alert before the first pitch. And then the first pitch comes and Josh Chisholm of the Marlins hits it out of the ballpark. So great, good no hitter alert, guys.
Yeah, this is why we don't bring up no hitters because you're going to curse it, even if it's the first pitch. And it was extra painful because Yamamoto, and the reason they did it, I think, was on an 18 like inning like scoreless streak or something crazy like that. And the first pitch, it's gone, and it's like, really, Jazz? He's the one who's going to take you yard? Like, no, Jazz, you're amazing, but like that's not what I've penciled in my bingo card for that day. So, but it was really funny. And a reminder, I think that the announcer's jinx is a very, very real thing.
I remember when I worked in sports, baseball specifically, like in the press boxes, there's kind of a golden rule. And this is before the pitch clock, but they were like, never say that a game is going by fast. They never say it because you'll get some looks if you say something because it's like shunned in the press box. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah, you're gonna absolutely cause some frustrations in the bowlers world. Both Zach and I bowl, and what's cool post COVID is there's a lot of new like young bowlers that have gotten into bowling because of like YouTube and stuff like that. But the problem is they don't get the decorum, and like after the front six, they'll like come to me and be like, "Oh, 300 watch." I'm like, we never mention a 300, just how we never mention a perfect game in baseball or bowling. Like we don't talk about it until it's been done, and you're like, cool. Like I knew you had it the whole time. And so if you ever watch someone bowling a perfect game, don't talk about it.
Yeah, especially to the bowler that's bowling the perfect game.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. Like I've had that happen multiple times, and it's always newer bowlers are like, "You're gonna get this 300, bro," and I'm like, "I've never had one. Don't tell me what I'm gonna do. Also, I don't know you, and shut up."
Like I'm already not thinking about it. Like,
yeah, but I kind of going off of that. Just did you want to talk about how impressive Shohei has been?
Dude, Shohei Ohtani, like, people in my sort of circle, my family, were kind of, boo-hooing the $700 million deal. Like, it's too much money. How can we give all this money to one player? And it's like we're a month and a half into the season, and he has proven every one of those people wrong. He number one in home runs. I think he's second in batting average, first in OPS. Like he is the best player, and he's the best player for a reason. He's worth every dollar of that $700 million contract.
I think like 5 of the hardest hit 10 balls this season are Shohei, like only rivaled by like I think up until like 2 days ago when Aaron Judge hit or Stanton, it's always one of those Yankee boys that hit something really hard that passes Ohtani. Ohtani had a single that was the hardest hit ball of the of the whole season at 119.2 miles, but just barely passed by 119.5. But it's been crazy, and I actually got to see him hit a home run live, and it's just like that was my dream. I was like, Max Muncy hitting 3 home runs. I will take that every day of the week. But as a new like game, seeing Shohei Ohtani just like in real life was just like I go to enough sporting events, and I feel like you, especially as someone who worked in sports, like like I've lived in LA, I've met celebrity. Like I usually don't get starstruck, but I was even like fangirl. I was like, oh God, Shohei, notice me, please. Like,
Yes, that's crazy. Dude, the sound that comes off of his bat, I know it's been talked about, but it's different. It's not like any other batter's sound. It's just like it's almost like you hear like a loud bang. I know it's what a bat makes, but like his sound is unique for sure.
it's got you know how we talk about like if you ever are put in jail for the rest of your life or you're going to be executed, you have a last meal. My last
Right.
sound that I would want is the crack of Shohei Ohtani's bat, maybe across my head. That's how, you know what? If I ever get executed, this is how we're going to do it. I don't think Shohei's cool with it, but this is what I want.
It's like a make-a-wish. Your final wish is
Yeah, my
just
final wish is just bash my brains in Shohei.
worth it. Totally worth it.
Yeah. But so yeah, Shohei's been great. And that, you know, and prior to like 2 weeks ago when we met last time, I would have put Mookie as my vote for like MVP. And so like the Dodgers lineup is just disgusting. Hopefully we can keep it up all year. But enough about Dodgers. What other teams are killing it right now, Zach?
Dude, can't talk about hot teams without mentioning the Philadelphia Phillies. They might have overtaken the Braves. I know they're leading the division, and the Braves have sort of been in first place for years now. But this Phillies team is deep, and they're deep thanks to, it's hard to say that one player can have an impact. I mean, like Shohei, but Phillies version of Shohei is Bryce Harper.
Mm-hmm.
Harper has been really, really good, and in the last 18 games that the Phillies have played with Harper in their lineup, they're 17-1.
Yeah.
He made some big impact, and the pitchers will pitch around him, and then he'll get score runs. He's a great player, and the Phillies are just a really solid team.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I think the Braves and Phillies, like if I would put money down today that they'll both be in the playoffs. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I think the Phillies can really do something interesting. And I think Bryce Harper is like such a good fit for that team and that city. Like he's got a chip on his shoulder that I imagine a Philadelphian to have. No shade to our Philadelphian listeners, but he's matured in a way that's like fun. Like he's snarky still, but he's not like he's in control of his emotions. And when he loses it, I'm now like I usually am like, okay, I get it, Bryce. And I think he's been really good for that team. And I think like they just also have really strong hitters up and down that entire lineup.
Yeah, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, who was such a good player for the Cubs in the playoffs those years ago, is still hitting very well. He's batting leadoff for them. He's had a few leadoff home runs. I mean, they can attack you from all sides in the hitting lineup, and I think they'd be a good challenger to the Dodgers right now. And we'll see if they can overtake the Braves in that division. I think they have all the power to do so. Zach Wheeler's looking like a Cy Young candidate for them.
Absolutely.
Phillies are good. Phillies are good. They're 26-12 right now. Let's see if they can keep this momentum.
Yeah.
Going.
Also, Suarez has been really good at pitching for them too. So there's just been a lot of
Suarez.
Yeah. So there's just a lot to be optimistic about in Philly, and I kind of hope I'm a fan of rivalries just in general. So I hope that there's this like brewing. That would be a better pun if we were talking about the Brewers and Cubs, but I was hoping that it'd be, there's this like rivalry that's, growing with the Braves and Phillies. I feel like for a hot minute, there was like this Phillies Nationals rivalry, but I think that was really kind of Bryce Harper like based. But I want some of that spice. So give it to us,
and they performed well in the playoffs last year. So this isn't just something of an overnight thing. They've been good for a couple of years now, and we'll see if they can keep it up. And I know that the Braves aren't just going to roll over. So they play in the same division. They're going to have battles, and we'll see who comes up on top. Even though the Braves are probably still a little bit favored.
Yeah. Would you say right now, if you had to do a power rankings, would the Dodgers or like who would be higher for you, the Dodgers or the Phillies?
Good question. I'd probably say the Dodgers right now, just because of what I said earlier of how many they won 7 straight, 14 out of the last 16 games. I think it's just a hair though. The Phillies are really good too, and I think it's you're splitting hairs at this point. I think if you're going to talk to a number of people, they'll give you different answers. I think they're a little bit interchangeable at this point.
Yeah, and I think like one thing, especially with like the top of each conference, I feel like, and we'll talk about in a second the bad of each conference, but I feel like the tops like couple like 4 or 5 teams in each like sorry, conference, what am I saying? Oh yeah, it's like in league.
The
Sorry,
league,
I'm in
yeah.
basketball mode. Sorry, I'm sure someone just threw something into their TV screen going, how dare he. But is that like the top teams feel so good, like top, like I feel like the top teams almost feel like, I don't know, the way we talked about like the LeBron Heat, like way, like I feel like all, like we have like 6 or 7 baseball teams that all feel that way, where I'm just like, how do you have like all of these players on this team and then this other team has all of these other players? It's sort of like there's just as much talent, but it's like really feels like it's coalesced around a few sort of teams.
It's like when you join a fantasy sports league as like a teenager, and it's like one of your first times, and then a team that's bad will just trade all of their players to like a good team. That's exactly what it feels like. Even like the Marlins, one of the worst teams, traded like a generational hitter, Luis Ariz, to the Padres. Like that doesn't happen in May. It just doesn't. But
Yeah.
we're so top heavy. But it creates for some fun matchups. I'm not gonna lie. But you don't have a lot of bad baseball, like when the Marlins played the Rockies about a week ago, and
What are you talking about? That was the best series of all time.
yeah, I'm sure it had all the eyes watching that series, but
uh,
it creates some fun matchups. So I'm not hating on it.
Yeah, I think it will lead to I think the good matchups will be extra good and the bad matchups will be extra bad, but hopefully extra bad in a way that's entertaining. And
Yeah,
um I think if you're a team of one of those bad teams, like I don't know what to tell you other than like it won't be forever. Like
yeah,
it truly won't be. It's true of all sports that everything goes to die one day. But I think like to your point, and this I think what we touched about a little bit last podcast about how there's been this mindset change in all leagues about like sort of min maxing, win lossing, right? And I think that's sort of how you end up the Marlins trading in May. Like you normally would expect to like the Marlins doing this is not necessarily unsurprising in of itself. It's the timing of it. It's like how soon we're just like we're done this season. Like we're tapping out. It feels earlier. Like teams are making earlier decisions. Like now, and also like for the Padres to this early in the season be like, we need more, give us
yeah.
more. And so like it's interesting on both ends that there's like a willingness to give up sooner and then a willingness to say we're competing sooner, which I think will lead to these more bifurcated outcomes.
Yeah, there's kind of no such thing as a middle class in baseball anymore. It's like you're either at the top of the top, you're gonna make the
How
playoffs,
sports
or
reflect the real world. Am I
that's
right? No,
seriously
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. And please don't
sadly.
put any political comments in the chat. This is a baseball podcast, but
Yeah,
but I think you're right. I think that's a good way to frame it. Is like there is like there are haves and have nots, and there's not really like that in between. And I feel like for so long baseball was like 26 teams in the middle and then like 2 teams on the outlier. And now it kind of feels like we're inverting that a little bit, where maybe it's not as dramatic, but it's like you have like 10 really good teams, 5 oh my god teams, 5 like bad teams, and then you have like maybe this like third of the league that's like kind of in this middle tier. But it used to feel like that middle tier was most of the league.
yeah. I mean, you saw a lot of records of like 82 and 80, right, and like 78 or whatever it is, 78, 80 wins. But now it's like 100 wins, or you're like the worst team in baseball. And I kind of want to segue that to
Yeah.
the Marlins, the Rockies, and the White Sox, who are all on pace for some of the worst records we've ever seen. I know you have the Dodgers and the Phillies playing so good, but these teams are fighting to be some of the worst ever. It's interesting how that works out.
Yeah, so just to put some data to it, just so the Astros, who are still terrible, but we talked about them last time, but they have become less terrible. Fun fact: their 12-24 start that they currently are is the 4th worst in their 63-year history. But
Wow.
the I don't know how fun that fact is, but even with that, the Astros are only, I think, the 4th worst team. But last time they were in this lower tier, but now they've bumped themselves up where they're just bad, but not historically bad. And so the teams that are currently historically bad are the White Sox, who are 9-28, which if the season ended today would be the 2nd worst season since 1916, which is crazy. But don't worry, they're not alone because the Rockies, who are also 9-28, would be tied for the second worst. And then you have the Marlins, who are 10-29 on the backs of that sweep.
Yeah.
And they're the sixth worst team of all time in terms of win percentage if the season were to end today since 1916. And that's just like atrociously bad.
I want to specifically talk about the Rockies. I mean, they played in a tough division already with the Dodgers and the Padres, and even the D-backs who were kind of off to a slow start. They were in the World Series last year, and they're in your division.
Yeah.
But man, they are really, really bad because usually their pitching sucks, right? I mean, they play in Coors Field,
Yeah.
which is a hitter's ballpark, is the most hitter-friendly ballpark in the majors. So you would think that, well, their pitching's always going to be bad. You have to make up for it with offense, right? Well, they're 25th out of 30 teams in offensive efficiency. So that's just not going to get it done. And they actually lost 3 games to the Marlins, that have not many wins above them. They got swept by them. So there's not really any happy times coming in Colorado.
Yeah, I made the poor decision 2 nights ago of just looking through, I think, like just the final score of every single Rockies game for this year. And it was like every single time they chose to actually show up and hit, the other team would hit more. It was like the Rockies would only get like 1 run or 2 runs like in every game. And then every game where they inevitably got 6 or 7, the other team got 1 run more. And I was just like, oh, Rockies. It was like the second that you're pitching, like, because I was surprised that some of the scores I was seeing, because I was like, oh, the Rockies pitching was better than I felt it was. I don't know if that but it was better than I felt it to be. And then whenever the pitching messed up, is when the hitting showed up, and it just they could never get it at the same time, and it felt very painful. It reminded me of how I felt when I looked back and watched the Pistons losing streak in basketball this year, where it was just like, how is this happening? And you're just like, oh, it makes sense. It feels like so much kind of random luck, and like they aren't this bad, I think, but like the record says they are,
Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of like bad luck involved, right? Like in baseball, you can hit the ball really hard and it can just find someone's glove, and it's just like nothing you can do about that. So that's a factor for sure, but they just have nobody in their lineup, man. Like we're long gone from the days of Arenado and Troy Tulowitzki and Todd Helton is not walking through that door, Bob.
No, are you telling me Larry Walker's not walking through that door either?
No, he's long gone, and their hopes of sort of being competitive are long gone for a while now. It's like, and I think being a Rockies GM is probably one of the hardest jobs in baseball, just because like pitching is already going to be a struggle for you. It's just comes with the territory you're in. So you're like, okay, do I sign pitchers that are strikeout pitchers? Do I sign pitchers that are fly ball pitchers? How about ground ball? Like it's really a hard game to play as a Rockies GM, and their owner doesn't make it easy for them. And the owner has kind of been documented on saying like, we're good with the teams that we have. He's just pretty stagnant. So it's a bad time to be a Rockies fan, and unfortunately 2007 is not walking through that door.
I know. I will never forget that September they gave us though in 2007. So but hopefully, I as much fun as it is to watch 3 teams be historically terrible, I hope it will follow the way of basketball, where we had 4 teams in basketball that most of the season were historically terrible, and then I think we only ended up with like 1 that actually was. So hopefully. I'm guessing it will be the Rockies that stay down. Hopefully the Marlins, and the White Sox can get it together a little bit more.
Yeah, we're still early on, so there's more room to be terrible, or you can find some luck and get good again.
Yeah, and I think with baseball especially, like the season being 162 games, like you have like 1 or 2 good months. Like, I mean, there's a reason that I feel like the Astros like are not part of, like, it seems like even with their terrible start, like no one's considering them in selling trade conversations, because they understand like it's long enough and we have this pedigree and we can still maybe come back, right? And generally I prefer teams to be on that side of things than trading away their best hitter in May.
Yeah, I agree. The Astros, I think a game plan for them, just don't play the Yankees. I think they've played them like 6 times this year, and they're like 0 for 6 or something like that.
Yeah, the Yankees have chosen violence against the Astros specifically.
Hey, let's talk about the Yankees for a second.
Yeah.
They're kind of getting really good again. Giancarlo Stanton's finding his way at the plate. Juan Soto, who manager Aaron Boone of the Yankees was quoted today saying, it is so fun watching every single Juan Soto at bat. I mean, I don't know if I'd put him in Ohtani territory, but he's all about the show, I feel like, right? Like he has the Soto shuffle where he goes back and forth in the box. He just has this menacing look at the plate that pictures kind of fear. And yeah, it's kind of like we should get alerts on our phones whenever Juan Soto's up at play, because I would just love to see that.
Oh, me too. I agree. I feel like, I think a lot of people were worried about what this acquisition would be, having Juan Soto on the Yankees. And I think it's like, I mean, hey, he's still so young.
Yeah.
And it seems to be going really well. I wonder if I wonder if this like will lead to Juan Soto getting one of those like, or just staying a Yankee forever. I feel like there's like the Yankees have somewhat of a track record of like there's a couple star players that'll start and be great somewhere else for a few years and then they'll end up being on the Yankees for a long period of time. I wonder if Stanton, you could argue, was kind of in that. But I agree with you, Stanton, Judge, like the power is coming back, and the Yankees are currently tied. If I'm looking at the
Yeah,
right thing.
they're tied for first place, and they've done it without Garrett Cole too, which has been crazy.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to present the Orioles with real problems. I think we said last podcast that it's just going to be a dogfight between those two teams.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. I think I see both these teams winning 100 games. The AL East is just kind of just going to see these two teams kind of separate themselves from the pack. And like I said, I still want to see that Dodgers Yankees World Series. Show me those power lineups going against each other. I'll take that every day of the week.
Yeah, I think that would be a very entertaining thing to watch. And if you are someone who hates both of those teams, which is probably most people who is not a fan of either of those teams, you can hate watch the World Series, which honestly I think is a fair way to watch. Whenever the Celtics have been in the finals, I'm hate watching because I want them. I want to watch them lose, and then when they win, then I just I have something else to talk to my therapist about. And then she might as well listen. She might as well make the money that I'm paying her worth it. So.
Jeez.
Yeah, but Yankees, Orioles. And then I think you also have, I think I'm still surprised. Well, not surprised, but I think you have the Guardians are still kind of staying afloat. The Twins have been hot recently. I'm looking at like these teams that are doing well, like the Central minus the White Sox. Like if you told me at the beginning of the year there'd be 4 teams in the Central that are over 500 and 3 of them very over 500, I would have been like, yo, bro, like, where are you getting this stuff from? Because like that sounds like some good stuff,
Yeah, it's all their teams are competitive. Like the Royals are doing well. The Tigers, like who've been historically bad, are finally starting to find a little bit of their footing. They have a Cy Young candidate right now. Yeah, Terrence Screwball, he's doing fantastic for them. So the Central is going to be something to watch. Keep an eye on. I know they really don't have like the firepower that like a Yankees or like Texas Rangers or the Orioles do, but that's still going to be a fun division to watch for sure.
Yeah, and I think we've seen we saw in the last playoffs that firepower is probably really nice in the totality of a season, but in a 5 to 7 game series, right? Sometimes that could not, that doesn't matter. I think of like in basketball, right? You have some of these teams that are great 3-point shooting teams, and over the course of a season, that's going to lead to a lot more wins. But if you just have that bad week at the wrong time, it could go terribly, or like the opposite, right? You could have the good couple weeks. The Diamondbacks, you just got hot, figured out how to win every game, and ended up in the World Series. And so I think that tension of like these overpowering rosters versus like these like well-constructed, more strategic. I like that duality.
Yeah, you could have the best lineup on paper. You could have, Ohtani, Trout, these guys in one lineup but they're expected to perform in the playoffs, right? When you have this added pressure of being in the playoffs, it's like, okay, now everyone's watching you trying to hit a home run. That's when you're seeing like teams strike out as much as they do, or why the Dodgers have struggled in postseason, or why the Yankees have struggled in postseason, because like everybody's now watching them. It's like it's the one thing to do it when it's game 1 of 162, but when there's a sprint to the playoffs, it's like there's a lot more added pressure that I think doesn't exist in other sports that can affect your performance as much, right? I mean, like if you're talking in basketball, like a Kobe Bryant, for example, is going to be good in the playoffs and regular season just because of his skill set. But in baseball, it's like when you have the power hitters now expected to hit for power during the playoffs, that's when you can see all these strikeouts pile up.
Yeah, and you see that added pressure, and I would love to somehow. There's no way to ever do a study on this. Is like in sports specifically, how much like ignorance is bliss, and what I mean by that is like do the Diamondbacks have the end of the season they did last year because there were no expectations, and so like you can just be excited and joyful, I kind of think of like right now in basketball, the Thunder, right? They're the one seed, and everyone's like, oh, they're gonna get like the playoffs are gonna be terrible. No, they've destroyed 5 straight games, and I wonder if like I don't like my team doesn't know that they're not supposed to be doing this, right? I wonder if there's some element of that in baseball of just like, of that
Like
being a positive mental like health effect and that we're not worried about it, and things of that nature.
I think it's very real in betting and sports betting that like you have the team that nobody believes in. And then, I think these guys, they keep track of the news and they keep track of sports betting and it's just natural. And so I remember there was an NBA game earlier this year in Boston, Lakers versus Celtics. And the Lakers were playing without LeBron and AD. And I think like the spread was like 16, 17 and a half points in favor of the Celtics. And the Lakers won the game. And I think that's just because be like, well, nobody believes in us. And they can sort of play with this, I don't know what the word is, but just sort of play with this looseness. Like they're not expected to win, so they're not all tight, and they can sort of be more creative in their approach. And that's when you can find wins from teams that you're not expecting to win.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree 100%. I think there's definitely an element of that. I think there's always, in sports, sometimes you have that rookie that takes off really well before anyone knows how to respond to them. And I think sometimes that happens because the rookie, is like, okay, I don't know what it's working, so I'm just going to keep doing it. Right. Like you don't know you can't do it until you can't do it. Right. So like that's where that ignorance is bliss. Let's see sorry. I know that you wanted to talk about, so we talked a little bit about Yamamoto. Did you want to talk a little bit more about kind of transitioning to pitching, about like the two rookie of the year potential candidates? And then I had a pitcher's power rankings that I had found and I wanted to share and get your opinions on. But we could start with the rookies before we get to the non-rookies.
Yeah, these two rookies from Japan, Shota Immonanda from the Cubs and Yoshi Yamamoto. If you take out Yamamoto's first start, which was in Korea under some crazy circumstances.
Yeah, and it's funny, Padre fans and Dodger fans will agree that series stat-wise didn't happen.
Yeah, seriously. It's an outlier because if you take out that game, his ERA has actually been under 2. His strikeout to walk ratio, like he has 42 strikeouts and 8 walks. I mean, he just locates. I think he started off the Marlins game earlier this week with like 18 straight strikes.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I'm just like, how do you, as a Marlin, like, what do you do? That's 6 straight hitters worth of strikeouts with not a single ball.
Yeah, it's crazy. And he's, with all that success that Yamamoto's had, he's still second in the voting right now, if projected for NL Rookie of the Year, because Immonanda has just been fantastic. 5-0 record to start a career. And how about this ERA? 0.78. That'll do. I'll take that every day of the week.
Yeah. I will too. And I think it's so exciting. Like, God, what a good time, like for just Japanese baseball in general, right? Like you had Shohei, like maybe like there's been people before Shohei, and I don't want to like besmirch their memory, but like you had this like, oh my God. And then I wonder if baseball teams, I see this, like, I think baseball teams are investing more internationally. They're trying to find these other prospects. I think that's actually historically one thing that's been an advantage for the Dodgers. Like in the 90s, we're like, yeah, we'll get pitchers from Korea, like as long as they're good, and so I think it's really interesting seeing that market expand. And I've definitely felt, granted, of course, I'm at a Shohei Ohtani game, but is like, I really felt in the game, like the fan base, like I felt the like kind of the Japanese fan presence, which was really cool. And you hear about it, Shohei's like the most famous athlete in Japan. He's like in half their commercials. Like I think like I saw a tenth of the like maybe not that much, but like a significant amount of the ads in Dodger Stadium were not in English, right? They're in Japanese for right. So I think you see a lot of money and interest like kind of flowing this way from there, and I just think it's really cool. And I think like an issue with like a lot of American sports is like sometimes we struggle getting that international audience. Like, right, I don't know if we necessarily have the appeal in totality, like, like a Premier League does, right, for folks outside of it. But I feel like I'm seeing like more of that interest specifically from this, and I think that's really cool.
Baseball is not as ubiquitous as, football is in Europe, right? But the countries that have baseball and players come from them, they really love their baseball. Like if you take Japan, Dominican Republic, Cuba, United States, like these countries give their all to baseball. And in Japan, it's different. Like they have a high school tournament that's called the Koshin. Hopefully I'm saying that right. But like it's attended by 100,000 plus fans every year. I mean, it is crazy what baseball is in Japan. And I think guys like Ichiro for sort of, you're seeing the Ichiro effect now.
Yeah. Ichiro was my favorite player for the longest time because I still contend. Yeah, I think if he'd been here since he was, like a younger person, he probably like number 2 or number 1 all time in hits, like professional in baseball. Like,
yeah.
But I think that's a good point, and like why it's good to have like these sort of role models that come from like it allows people to see the vision, right? And all of a sudden, Ichiro's playing 20 years ago, and now the best player in baseball is like a Japanese player. Like it's so cool to see. And
agreed.
I think back to one of my favorite sports moments, even though it was at our at America's like behest, was when Shohei struck out Mike Trout in the World Baseball Classic to end it. Like, so I was at my bowling league that night, and literally everyone stopped what they were doing to do that and to watch it. And that doesn't happen normally. Like like people are just doing their thing when baseball's on. Like it was one of those moments where you're like, where were you when it happened, right? And I hope there's more of those kind of international touchstone moments that can help grow the game that we love, and that unfortunately I think in lots of part like in general America is kind of dying, right? The interest in it is dying, so we got to get fans from any corner of the world that would be willing to enjoy this game.
So if I had to ask you today, who's going to win the Rookie of the Year? Is it going to be Yamamoto or is Imananda going to keep his hot start?
So I think I don't know, but I feel like you can make an argument against a Rookie of the Year if they have a really strong supporting cast. And I could see a world where like the Dodgers hitting, like just those other things could allow like to be points against Shota, but points against Yamamoto. So I think right now I would assume it would be as is, where I think probably that Shota will end up getting it if I had to put money. And also, I mean, just starting 5-0 is so dominant. And yeah, you can of course throw out that Korea series, but we know how baseball voters are. I don't know if they're always doing those sorts of things that would be very smart to like throw out this outlier start, right? Or something like that. So, and I think I worry that Yamamoto could be outshined on his own team, even as like not even the best Japanese player on his own team, like, with Shohei. So I do worry. I sometimes think those narratives play a bigger role than they should. Like, for example, I think going back to basketball, like Wemby should have been more considered the defensive player of the year conversation, but it was kind of the inverse thing where everyone else around him was so bad. Us sports writers, we need to figure out consistency, because in some sports we love when we have a good supporting cast, and other sports we hate when we do. And I just want to know. Man.
And people sort of cherry pick their own rules to sort of follow and sort of their own stats metrics to keep in track of the player that they're voting for in the first place. And, it's, I don't know who's going to win Rookie of the Year, but it's been fun watching both these pitchers sort of do their thing for sure.
Yeah. And I think I think this is really exciting for baseball. Like at the end of the day, no matter who wins, this is a really exciting moment to have such just good dominant starters coming out.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of want to just suppose that to the next topic. We keep going with pitching because the top prospect Paul Steen's being called up by the Pirates to make his debut versus the Cubs this weekend.
You
He's
always know
been
it's a big call up when you get like a notification on DraftKings, like Paul Skeens to play first game, and you're like, oh, okay, DraftKings, you care about baseball now? Yeah.
I was seeing that people were comparing this debut to like Strasburg's debut in 2010. You know, he dominated AAA this year, like 3 runs in 27 innings, struck out 45 players. He has 100-mile-an-hour fastball that he can throw like the entire game. It's just he's kind of on cheat codes, and it's going to be fun to watch his career, and hopefully he can stay healthy. I know that was a topic of conversation last time, as these pitchers kind of overthrowing their arms.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see this guy stick around because if he's every bit as good as his minor league numbers, he's going to be a force for a long time.
Yeah, and I hope he doesn't fall the way of Jackson Holiday and Tyler Black, who get called up early in the season, you expect, and have already been sent back down to the minors. So hopefully you can stay up, Paul, because I'm always excited when there's like hitting prospects, but there's something always exciting about like a top pitching prospect, especially because it feels like sometimes there's like years you're waiting for this moment of like I feel like we knew about Strasburg for years, like even like towards the end of high school. We're like, oh, when this guy starts, and then all of a sudden we got the call up, and so I'm excited to see what he does.
Maybe he can turn around the Pirates, and the Pirates will be good for the first time in a long time because of this guy. He's that dominant, and can't wait to watch it start. But hopefully he lives up to the hype. As you mentioned before, like Jackson Holiday had as much hype coming up, and he struggled because it's a different game in the majors, man. It really is. You go from playing AAA guys to playing the Cubs. And the Cubs are no joke. They can keep up with the best of them.
Yeah,
so
no, they're good. They're good.
That's going to be hard.
Yeah, I think it's always hard to like, probably if you're at the cusp of being a professional baseball player, you've been the best player wherever you've gone probably your whole life. And now all of a sudden you're with people who are at the same, better. And I think it creates I think there's just this different mindset and resilience that you need that I think is a skill that can absolutely be learned. And I don't think this is not me saying any of the prospects who've been sent down or like SOL, right? I think they'll come back, but there's a certain, I think, learning curve of how to learn how to lose that sometimes can be hard for really good prospects to deal with, right? And I think, I think sometimes I see in sports like that role player that stays around for 15 years, but never like was an all-star, but like they're always there, right? They're a player that knows how to lose and be productive with it, right? I think that's a skill that no one wants to talk about because no one wants to lose, right? But being good at losing and having a mindset of resilience, I think those things are related, because if you are bad at losing, you can't handle it, and then you become not resilient, and then you can't deal with the fact you're losing, and you become Gaara Naruto when he first got hit the first time and has a mental breakdown.
Yeah, and in baseball, look, if you fail 7 out of 10 times at the plate, you're still a Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah.
Baseball is a sport of failure, and I think you're right. It's not talked about enough. The way you handle losing is almost important, or even more important with winning, because that, if you're okay with losing, that can prevent long slumps, getting in your head as much, and the bounce back time will be a lot shorter when you're like, okay, I know I can just get up from this because it's just one game, and the next day is a new chance to be better.
Yeah, and was it Luka Doncic who said something like everyone can talk when they're up, Right. And so it's sort of like, yeah, anyone can talk trash when you're winning, but how do you keep that composure when you're losing? Right. So continuing along with pitching, I have here, Zach, if you don't mind doing this thought exercise. I don't know if it's a thought exercise, but I'm just curious your thoughts. I have a list of top 10 power rankings. It's pitcher power rankings, but I read it as power pitcher rankings. So which is funny because a power pitcher is a specific kind of pitcher, so that threw me off. So this is from MLB. It was published actually today, and it features a couple people we've loosely talked about today. I'm just gonna list it. And then I think I'll list 10 through 1 and just get your thoughts if any stands out, if you think anyone should be on this that's not, or if anyone who's here, you're like, I don't know. So starting us off at number 10, we got Jose Barrios for the Blue Jays. Number 9, we got Jared Jones of the Pirates. So, Paul, you got to watch yourself. And then we have for the Mariners, Logan Gilbert. 7, we got my guy, and he's only my guy because I have him on a fantasy baseball team, Corbin Burns for the Orioles. Number 6, we have Yamamoto sneaking in from the Dodgers. Number 5, we have Suarez from the Phillies. Number 4, we have Shota from the Cubs coming in. Think about that. Also, 2 rookies on this top 10 power like rankings list. Good job, rookies. Number 3, we got Tyler Glasnow for the Dodgers. 2, mentioned earlier by you, Zach, we have Skubal. Am I saying that right? Yeah, Tarek Skubal from the Tigers. Go Detroit. And then who you also mentioned before, we have number 1 from the Phillies, Zach Wheeler. So what do you think of this list? Anything you would change? Anything you would modify? If we're thinking about this as like top 10 likelihood to get a Cy Young, I don't know if that's the way to think about it. Just what are your thoughts?
I think it's a very fair list. I think the top 3 are a little interchangeable. You can make the argument that Glasnow's been the best pitcher. You can make the argument that Wheeler's been the best pitcher, which MLB said that he is. I think when you're on a team that's winning a lot, and B, every time you go out there, you're just consistently the best player on the mound every night. That's going to affect your rating. I think all those pitchers very strong. I like that Yamamoto's on that list from the bad start that he had to bounce back. I think you mentioned, let's see, one of your earlier guys. Jose Barrios of the Blue Jays.
Mm-hmm.
He's pitching very well. So I think it's a fair list. But I think you're going to see that top 3 as being talked about as the best of the best. I think Struble is very much a Cy Young candidate for AL if he keeps it up. And I think
he's on the only one on this list from the AL in the top 6. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard in NL. All those players you listed are National League guys. And Yamamoto, who's having the season that he has, not even the best pitcher on his own team. So
yeah,
speaks to that level. And yeah, Shota Immananda, we talked about earlier. It's fun. I'm a fan of pitching and the fact that those top guys are doing really well. It's fun every time they take the mound because it's like, okay, you're gonna get a performance that you're gonna talk about for a little while.
Yeah, and I love shout out to Tarek being the second on the Tigers, which shout out to Detroit. They don't get enough love just in general as a city. They're sports fans. They don't get enough love, and I have a soft spot in my heart for Detroit. Whenever I hear a Detroit team is doing good, unless it's the Red Wings.
Well, if the Tigers kind of inch closer to winning the Central, then you're probably definitely going to see a screwball Cy Young for sure.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that 100%. I think that's how a lot of voters would interpret that, and as how it's going right now, I don't blame them at all.
Yeah.
All right. So, Zach, as we're starting to wind down a little bit, do you have any interesting closing thoughts, like favorite memories from either the season or just from the last couple of weeks?
Let's see. I'm a little biased to the Dodgers, but they've had a little bit of a slow start there, but the way they picked it up, I mean, they're just looking like every bit of the team that we thought they were going to be. And I think the Phillies, I know we touched on them earlier, they've been really fun. Watch out for the Braves, though, man. I know they've got a slow start, but the Braves are going to be there. And I think when you see those guys start to turn it around, like Acuna's having kind of a little bit of a quiet season this season compared with last, but he's going to turn it around. The Albies is consistent. That Matt Olson is really good, and their pitching is always there. So the Braves and the Phillies that's going to be fun division for sure. And I know the Dodgers have a 6.5 game lead right now, but don't sleep on the Padres. I mean, they acquired Luis Ariz. I mean, they have Tatis. They have, they got Dylan Cease from the White Sox. They made some trades to be competitive, and I think they can have a run that could put them close to the Dodgers. So just be on the watch for the NL West and the NL East. Those are going to be the divisions I think are going to be the most fun to keep track of.
Yeah, and I also want to shout out the Padres. Padres, because they haven't had the success that I think some other teams have that people haven't thought about. But like their front office the last 5 years, I think has just they've made they've had some misses, but generally I think like they're doing really good stuff down there in San Diego.
They're committed to winning. Like, would you rather have a team that tries every year to be committed to winning, or to be like the Rockies that are just complacent and like, oh, our pitching sucks, I guess we'll not be competitive for another year? Like, I think even the Padres, you're right, haven't had the success, but they're in it every year because they want to be in it every year. And I think that speaks to that franchise, beautiful ballpark. And even though they're a Dodgers rival, I love to see them do well because they don't get the love, nationally as some of these other teams do.
And they should. So, Padre fans, if you're listening, this might be one of the few times two Dodgers fans gives you the flowers you deserve. So suck it up because we're going to be mean the next time. We're going to be mean about something. So I want to talk about a least favorite moment that's happened so far and a favorite moment. I'll start with the favorite moment because it's also Dodger biases. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with baseball specifically, but when we were at the game, so we're at the game last Saturday. And Kendrick Lamar had released his second diss track or third diss track of and so he released Not Like Us either the day before or right before the game. And they played it in Dodger Stadium and Dodger fans were rocking out to it. We were all a lot of us who knew the song were already singing it and been out only for a few hours. Felt like a very Los Angeles experience. And it's funny because I live in LA, but I don't feel like I have that many Los Angeles experiences. If that makes sense to you, Zach, I don't know if it does, but I felt yeah, I'm in LA. The added extra spice of part of the beef. If you're up to date with the beef, right, there's some mentions of Atlanta, not in that specific song, but we were playing the Atlanta Braves. And so it was just a really kind of fun, interesting moment as being at this game, looking at this really diverse audience, which I love about Dodger Stadium. Everyone looks so different from each other. It's just a beautiful cacophony of people. We're all just rocking out to Kendrick. But my least favorite moment of the game happened, I think, just yesterday. This is for if you are squeamish or scared of pain, do not look up what I'm about to tell you. But if you are fascinated by pain or just watching things happen, try to take a look at what happened to Willie Contreras. What happened is he was reaching for a ball, he catcher, and JD Martinez swings, and and right at the same time, Willie Contreras is kind of reaching to frame the ball, and his forearm gets clipped, and immediately in the replay you can see it snaps, and you can tell immediately the bone breaks. So Willie, I hope you are doing better. I hope, or probably not right at this moment, but I hope that you can get better. One thing that was interesting, I was listening to the Talking Baseball podcast earlier today, and they were talking about how, forget who, but it was someone who took photos of Willie Contreras from where he was last year, where he is this year when it comes to the plate, and he's significantly closer up on the plate. And so they were theorizing if, because framing the pitch is such an important thing for catchers, if maybe that we've gone a little too far with that. The Yankees have there have been people in the front office, if you could steal 9 strikes a game, right, that's a full run or something like that. So if you think about a catcher just trying to quote unquote, which is such a silly thing to think about stealing strikes because of the way you're framing, I don't know if I want a full robot umpire as we talked about last time, but this is where we wouldn't have to play this game of people breaking their forearms to frame a pitch correctly to confuse old white men who can't see behind them because they're too old and their eyes don't work, right? I don't know if that's why this man should have a broken forearm today, Zach. I have feelings, mostly because it's a very hard video to watch.
Yeah, it is. No, that's something I never thought of. That pitch framing can actually be interference in a way that could hurt the catcher. It's something that I haven't considered, but seeing that video is man, that makes me want to question the act of pitch framing, which is something I never think about.
Yeah, that's what I took away from that conversation too. If you look at the photo, JD is literally as far back as you legally can be, I think, in the batter's box, literally a centimeter more, and he's breaking a rule. But it was also it's when you have two sides that are pushing the rule as close as they can get it, you end up having things like this. So I don't know if I end up changing anything. Hopefully this is a one-off situation. And Willie was just too excited because maybe he thought he wasn't going to swing and he reached for the pitch. I don't know. But That was my least favorite moment.
Hopefully, we wish him a speedy recovery. And yeah, I also love your Kendrick Lamar reference to hear not like us at the Dodger game. Like there's Dodger game is special in terms of connecting everyone in Los Angeles at the same time, and sort of with our love for hip hop and hearing that song, it just two worlds collide. I'm sure that was a really fun moment.
Yeah, I will say, as someone who's been to sporting events of all types in LA, Dodger games feel the most LA to me.
Yeah,
Just because I think the nature of like, you have a sport that you have 80 home games, right? You have 50,000, like we have a massive stadium. So it allows a lot of opportunity for cheap tickets that allows like a lot of fans to go. But I think you have an issue with like SoFi with the Rams, and an issue with, and also the Chargers. I'm sorry, Chargers, I forget you're technically with us. And then is the Lakers. And so those tickets are just so expensive. I feel like it prices out like, some of the most diehard fans, right? I think like a lot of the diehard sports fans in LA are not, like, generally speaking, the richest folks in the world, right? If like all my friends who are sports fans for the most part are not like, right, we use sports to distract ourselves from the ills of the world, but like that makes it feel very LA. So it was a very, very cool moment to be there. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So is there any closing thoughts you want to say, Zach, before we call it a pod?
I just want to say it's been an honor again, Bobby. Episode 2 in the books.
Episode 2. Let's do some like outro stuff, Zach. How's that sound? So
let's do it.
Cool. So if you have not already, please subscribe to the Omni Sports YouTube channel if you're watching it there. If you're listening to us, subscribe to us wherever you get podcasts. Right now, the current plan with Zach and I, which is up in the air, but is to every other week do sort of a pod like this. I'd encourage you all, if you're like, I want to hear Zach talk about this or Bobby talk about this, let us know right in the comments. This is just as much for you as it is for us. Like, it's really for you, but Zach and I will talk sports regardless if anyone's listening. But if there's anything you want us to talk about, cover, any activities or ideas you have, I think eventually we might have goals of trying to do this live, but that might be a few months away. I don't know. But just pay attention to that and let us know. If you like basketball, we brought it up a few times. We're just generally sports fans, Zach and I. But I do have a basketball podcast also that you can check out. That is weekly, and it's meant to be sort of like a quick update of what's going on, some analysis, and also this is my beautiful kitty mushroom, which only YouTube you can see. So if you're not on YouTube, go look at this beautiful kitten who's in my arms and licking my thumb. So adorable.
So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and can't wait for episode 3. Let's do it.
Not like us. Not like us. Not like